Welcome to the Daily Outrage. Tonight, there's no one outrageous thing that happened today. The entire day was an outrage. From the minute in the morning when we heard government grants and aid would be suspended to the end of the day when a judge granted a very tenuous stay on that order, there was nothing about it that was decent, nothing uplifting, nothing ennobling. The entire day was a shit show. It was punctuated by what would charitably be called a press conference held by a spoiled, petulant woman child named Carolyn Levitt, who was as unqualified for her post as any of other of Trump's various nominees to cabinet positions. In her 45 minutes, Levitt berated the real press, or what's left of it, while entertaining the softball ass-kissing questions from the stable of right-wing Looney Tunes media that have now been allowed to run riot in the White House press room. Her contempt for the real-world media was only surpassed by her contempt for anyone in America who is not a part of the MAGA cult. The central question from the real-world press was about the flagrantly illegal acts by the Führer, including the withholding of federal funding from everything from Meals on Wheels to food stamps to the firing of almost every government inspector to the gutting of the federal civil service. To every one of these questions, her answer was always the same, and I'll paraphrase it here. We are going to do what we want to do, and what are you or anyone else going to do to stop it? We will choose to interpret the law as we see fit and ignore the ones we don't want to follow. It was at this point my blood ran cold. A line had been crossed on this day, the 28th of January, 2025. This was no ordinary day or ordinary press conference. This was the female embodiment of Joseph Goebbels with similarly hysterical tone and cadence, telling the world that our democratic republic as we knew it was coming to an end. Levitt was particularly gleeful about it all. This is how democracy dies, to an avalanche of snark. It was the most nauseating thing I have seen since the Führer told everyone to ingest bleach during the pandemic, but more so. People may not be made to swallow actual poison, but they can be forced to swallow the poison of fascism. Let's pause for a few minutes to talk about the major news item of the day, and then I'll personalize it for you. This morning, Medicaid, the program that provides health care for the poorest and sickest Americans, went down. The payment portals for the program went down, leaving tens of millions of people badly in need of life-saving care staring at empty screens. Medicaid is a program run jointly by the states and the federal government. With the Children's Health Insurance Program, or CHIP, Medicaid insures more than 1 in 5 Americans, about 79 million people, nearly half of whom are children. Medicaid also pays for roughly 2 in every 5 births in the United States. And this morning, that lifeline went down. Why? According to the Führer's acting head of the Office of Management and Budget, all federal agencies were commanded to temporarily pause all activities related to obligations or disbursements of all federal financial assistance. Why? To get all the woke out of those programs. The memo explicitly exempts Medicare and Social Security, federal programs that provide health insurance and retirement benefits for seniors. Small favors. Medicare and SNAP, the food stamp program, the OMB later said was exempt, but nobody in the ministry could explain why the portals were down. Now let me allow you to personalize it. Until very recently, I worked for a county welfare office here in suburban Pittsburgh. I saw firsthand the people who were clothed, fed, and sheltered by the overworked and under-resourced employees of this office. I saw many, many people in our lobby that were living on the edge. We were helping them, and I mean this quite literally, to stay alive. Amazingly, there were a few employees of this office who were Trump supporters. On my last day of employment, shortly after the election, I told one of these people that they needed to go and take a good look at the people in our lobby. I told him that a year from now, I would not be surprised if 3/4 of the people currently housed were homeless, and half of the currently homeless would be dead. Of course, he scoffed. Like many of the Führer's acolytes, he believed that empathy was an expression of the devil to be avoided at all costs, and that these people were merely freeloading and milking the system. I walked away before my temper got the best of me. But I wish you could have seen what I saw in those people: the desperation, the anger, the hunger, and the fear. Are there no workhouses, indeed? I fear for these people, but that fear also comes home to me. I have an adult son with moderately severe autism. He also has a severe case of Crohn's disease, which has resulted in more invasive operations, bowel sectionings and resectionings, more pain and suffering than I would wish on anybody. If not for Medicaid, his mother and I would quickly be faced with medical bills no honest person could pay. Yes, Republicans, you are paying for my son's medical care, as other people pay for yours one way or the other. It is what a decent, civilized society does. But again, I'm letting that old devil empathy get in the way. But know this: if it was your loved one, I would gladly pay the taxes to help take care of them, because it's the decent and proper thing to do. Once Christians in this country were called to act in such ways. Now American Christianity teaches one has to be cruel to be kind. But that's another story. My son and millions of your fellow Americans are benefactors of government aid. And tonight, fear stalks the land. Will I get my medications, they ask. Will I get enough food to eat at the end of the month? Will my housing voucher be taken away, rendering my family hopeless? I guess we'll all wait and see. Now back to the cold chill I felt today watching all this unfold. It was a kind of primal fear that the country I once loved and wore the uniform for was dying and being replaced with some deformed, horrible thing. For the first time in my life, I felt less love for my nation. I feel even less for the 77 million people who voted for this. I have one message for you: damn you all to hell. I don't want to hear one word about the price of eggs or the brown-skinned foreigners coming to take your job. I want you to completely admit what you actually voted for. You voted for Americans to go hungry. Yes, you did. You voted for Americans to go homeless. Yes, you did. You voted for Americans to die without health care. Yes, you did. You voted to end the almost 250-year experiment in democratic government. Yes, you did. You voted for the American Gestapo to round up families that have lived here for decades and dump them back in countries they've never lived in. Yes, you did. You voted for white supremacy and misogyny. Yes, you did. When you voted for Trump, you voted for all of it, and I don't want to hear whatever lame excuses you offer now that perhaps your family and your loved ones are about to be hurt by this man in the White House and his henchmen. Now that the leopards are going to eat your face, you're going to whine about this is not what you wanted. Bullshit. You were warned time and again. You had the man's own words and track record to consider. You had Project 2025 that, if you were interested in reading it, laid it all out for you. The terms fascism and authoritarianism were mentioned loudly and often, but those concepts probably seem nebulous to you. Something those liberal, college-educated people talked about but weren't real. And after all, your hero, your Führer, your retribution, your cult leader would never actually do any of those things, right? For any of you tonight who believe in God, for the sake of all those people in the lobby of the county welfare office, for the people living under the overpasses, for the kids in Head Start, for the aged widow who depends on Medicare to live and Medicaid to live, for every single hurting and needy person in this, what we are told is the greatest nation on earth, ordained by God himself, well, please, on behalf of all of those people, beseech your God for once to shed his grace on us. Because with the feeble opposition of congressional Democrats, I fear we are going to need divine intervention to emerge from the other side of this ordeal with our society intact. Because when you voted for Trump, you voted for fascism. Yes, you did. Good night and good luck.